everyone, it's time for us to go and take a look at the Samsung Galaxy A16 and compare it against the Samsung Galaxy A14 and see which particular device is a better one for you. Now, I would probably tell you in almost every single way, the Samsung Galaxy A14 is a substantially better device than the Samsung Galaxy A14. The A14 I think is still a really good device in a lot of different ways, but if I am going to go through and pick up a device, I think it does make a lot of sense to go and buy something like a Samsung Galaxy A16, but there are probably also some other devices I would probably recommend buying as well. So we'll take a look at those throughout this whole entire video. First things first, if you do want to pick up either one of these devices, links will be down in the description. You can get those phones from there and some other phones I'd recommend buying in the links down below, and you can help support the channel at the exact same time. Now, starting off with the outside of both, the Samsung Galaxy A14 on the front side of this particular phone is giving you a 6.6-inch PLS LCD panel, and it's a pretty decent panel. It's okay for how cheap this phone was. And this phone did come out back in 2023, like early 2023. So I don't think it's like a terrible panel for how cheap this phone was supposed to be. But keep in mind, this thing is not supposed to be competing with the Samsung Galaxy S phones of that year or anything like that. Like, these are pretty basic types of panels. They're supposed to be cheap. They're supposed to be kind of bringing some basic type of capability. So I do think that's kind of one of those things to kind of keep in mind there. However, I would probably say with something like the Samsung Galaxy with something like the Galaxy A16, this is a really big difference. The Samsung Galaxy A16 is basically going to be bringing you a 6.7-inch Super AMOLED display. So it's a little bit of a bigger panel, less bezel on it, but the biggest difference here is that AMOLED display. Being able to go through and get a much nicer looking panel, and it's 90 Hz, and it's probably brighter. Those are some really, really big things to keep in mind here. Now, you don't have to go through and get the most expensive S-series phone to get into Super AMOLED display or dynamic element or whatever. You can get a cheaper phone, get, a 90 Hz refresh rate, which isn't anything crazy, but it still is a really nice thing to have. And I personally love having that within this type of device. So for me personally, I think that's a really big deal. And I would love being able to go through and pick up a phone like a Samsung Galaxy A14, like something like a Samsung Galaxy A16, because it's going to be giving you a much better panel from that particular perspective as well. So definitely on the front side, the Galaxy A16 definitely wins. They're both giving you USB Type-C ports on the bottom. They're both giving you basically plastic backs throughout this whole entire device. But I will tell you, the back of the Samsung Galaxy A16 feels better and more expensive than the back of the Samsung Galaxy A14. So I do think this in and of itself is kind of an advantage for the Galaxy A16. It feels very similar to the back of something like the something like the Google Pixel 6a or the 7a, even more like the 7a. It's not, a frosted plastic back or anything, but you can tell like it feels much better than something like the Samsung Galaxy A14. So triple cameras on the backside, and overall it's a really good feeling phone on both. There are some slight differences though that some newer phones have that these ones don't. Both these phones do not have any wireless charging. They both don't have like a high refresh rate. They have 90 Hz on the Samsung Galaxy A16, but there's no 120 Hz, which is still pretty good. But I do appreciate how the Galaxy A16 does have IP54 dust and water resistance, so it's a little water resistant, but not like the Galaxy A14 from what I can see. So from that side, that kind of covers it up there for the most part. Now, when it comes down to the price tag, the Galaxy A16 does cost about $200, give or take. The A14 is going to cost substantially less than that, but there are other phones that are out there that don't really cost like $200-300 that might be better than both these. From a price tag perspective, maybe a Galaxy S21 would be a better priced phone than both of these. So that is just one other thing to kind of keep in mind here. Again, I don't really think it's like that big of a deal, but that could be one other thing you might end up noticing when it comes down to both these devices, in my personal opinion as well. So once again, kind of keep that in mind there too. From the camera side, like I said before, both these phones have triple camera setups, and they're both almost identically the same type of camera. The Galaxy A14 was giving you a 50 megapixel wide, then a 5 megapixel ultra wide camera, and then a 2 megapixel macro lens, where the Samsung Galaxy A16 is giving you a 50 megapixel, wide angle lens, 5 megapixel ultra wide camera, and then a 2 megapixel macro lens. So when it comes down to this side, from what I can tell you in my personal opinion as well, once again, you are probably going to be getting a little bit of a better type of camera layout inside of something like a Samsung Galaxy A16 than the Galaxy A14. But you can tell just by the megapixel count, there's not really going to be that big of a difference here either. So I personally do think this is in and of itself kind of one of those things where you might notice a difference, you might not. The numbers suggest there's not that big of a difference either from the front camera or the back camera. They're both also filming only in 1080p at 30 frames per second. So I do think this also is another really big thing to kind of keep in mind here as well. So personally for me, when it comes down to the camera side, I think the Galaxy A16 might be better, but the difference between these is there's really not that big of a difference as far as I can tell. So from that side, that kind of covers it up there. Now on top of that, another very big difference is probably the software experience. The Samsung Galaxy A16 is probably going to be giving you a longer lasting phone than the Galaxy A14. The Galaxy A14, it ended up getting a couple versions of Android. It's on One UI Core 5 or One UI Core 6. But the Samsung Galaxy A16 is rated to get up to 6 major versions of Android. This is without a doubt, once again, another very big feature set for that particular device. Being able to go through and get a phone that's a cheaper phone like the Galaxy A16, but it's going to be giving you a long-lasting phone, a much longer-lasting phone than the Galaxy A14. I think that's a really big difference. And personally for me, that is without a doubt a really big advantage for that type of device. So personally for me, I think this in and of itself is a really cool thing going on for that phone. I think the A14 is still great and everything. I don't have that much to complain about there with that phone. I mean, it was okay. It's not that great to be honest anymore. But definitely the A16 is far better here when it comes down to it. Now, the battery size of the Galaxy A16 is another really big advantage. That phone is giving you a 5,000 mAh battery, and they're both giving you 5,000 mAh batteries. So this is a really cool thing here. And personally for me, like I mentioned before, I would probably say the A16 might be better, but the A14 is still killing it when it comes down to it as well. And finally, when it comes down to the performance, the Samsung Galaxy A16 was basically giving you that Exynos 1330 chipset with 4, 6, or 8 gigabytes of RAM, where the Galaxy A14 is giving you that MediaTek Helio G80 chipset inside with 4 or 6 gigabytes of RAM. So once again, this is in and of itself another really big advantage for the Galaxy A16. It's going to be giving you more RAM and theoretically better performance, but this is kind of one of those things that I recommend kind of thinking about. With a device like the Samsung Galaxy A16, yes, it's going to be a faster phone, and yes, it's going to be better, and it's going to be a really good phone nonetheless. I would definitely look at a phone like the Galaxy A14 as also not being like that much slower than the A16. Like, yes, it's not as fast, but both these phones really aren't going to be giving you that great of capability here. Both these phones kind of suffer in the same areas where I would like them to be a little bit better at, and that is essentially what's going on here as well. So that's why I look at both these phones as kind of being more similar than not. Like the A16 is better, it's nicer, it's going to be giving you a lot better capability, and I do think if I'm going to go through and pick up a phone, it's definitely going to be a Galaxy A16 over the A14, but I would probably say the A14, like, it's not that much worse, but it definitely is a worse phone. But I would highly recommend buying something like a Samsung Galaxy S21 or a Samsung Galaxy S22. The S22 I would probably recommend more like the S22 Plus, S22 Ultra. Those phones are substantially better. They are like twice the price of an A16, but I would still recommend going that way rather than buying something like an A16 or an A14. I would highly recommend the A16 over the A14, but definitely buy an S21, S22, or S23, or even a Galaxy A55 or a Galaxy A54. Those might be better options than the A16. So that pretty much covers it up there. If you have any other thoughts or questions, please let me know in the comment section below. Hit the like button, that would mean so much, but definitely hit that subscribe button. More importantly than everything else, I love every single one of you guys. Hopefully I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out till then.